All right. Let's do this. All right. Hello, everyone. Going live on all platforms. Here we go. And today, on this Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show, special edition of the Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show, we are previewing the MLB Major League Baseball postseason, which begins tomorrow on September 30th. And potentially the last game, Game 7 of the World Series, could potentially run all the way until November 1st, which could be very, 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 very cold if again, like someone like New York or Boston or Detroit ends up making the World Series, could be extremely, extremely cold. But you know, it is what it is. And so the Texas Rangers are not in it, so no one will be playing indoors. But again, we have the Dodgers in there, the Padres are in there, so there could be some warm weather games that potentially do happen. But we are going to preview it, preview the games, the wild card matchups, everything going forward. We're also going to preview some MLB awards, make some predictions, things of that nature, and we're just going to see how it goes. I generally don't go live, so I'm going live on all platforms. I think we're live on X and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all these sorts of places. So I have really no idea how it looks on those platforms or what it's going to look like when I'm done or how this is going to go. But I got some tabs open. I got some things I want to discuss, all MLB postseason related. Also, a quick note: my son was born like 13 days ago. And so, so it's been a little hectic around here. So maybe my information isn't great. So I do have some tabs pulled up to preview that stuff, to think about that stuff. But God bless my son and him being born, and God bless my wife. So first, let me just share my screen and let's get this freaking party started. I mean, first we're gonna look at some MVP voting. I think when it comes to most valuable player, it's pretty much a lock on both sides. I know in the American League, everyone's like, "Oh, Cal Raleigh, big dumper, Aaron Judge." It's like a big debate. It's not really a big debate. Aaron Judge is the most valuable player, but I think people's eyes will just light up when they see someone who's hit 60 home runs. Like, holy shit, 60 home runs. He's got to win the MVP no matter what. And to give Big Dumper his credit, right? He's obviously also a catcher, which, if you're not a baseball person, is an absolute premium position, like premium position. Very, 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 very hard position, right? One of the most grueling positions on the field, if not the most grueling position on the field. And so to be able to do that really well defensively and then also turn around and come back and smack 60 home runs and have over 100 RBI and be the sort of the catalyst and the team leader of the team is really special. And also on top of that, the Mariners have continually fallen off late in the season. They've had really good teams the last couple of years, but they just fallen off the last couple of years and haven't been able to get it done going into the playoffs. And so this year they were able to do that with someone like Big Dumper. So when you think most valuable, obviously the Mariners wouldn't be where they're at without him. But if you substitute Judge in that situation, they're in the same spot. And I think the same goes potentially for the Yankees. But if you look at their numbers, just their numbers, Aaron Judge beats him in almost every single category outside of home runs. I think Aaron Judge had 53 home runs and Raleigh had 60. I believe Raleigh had a few more RBI than Judge, but average and OBS and WAR and all these sorts of things that accumulate that. I think Judge is your MVP. And looking at some of the experts, I think everyone is going to give Judge the MVP trophy. But you can't discredit what Cal Raleigh did. Like, obviously, one of the best seasons we've seen from a catcher in a very long time. I think the last time we saw something like this was Salvador Perez. Didn't hit 60 home runs, obviously, but I think he hit 40 as a catcher. But Raleigh is a switch hitting catcher. And so it's just really, really, really impressive that we saw greatness in real time. And so I've had my screen pulled up from Jeff Passan's tweet for like 5 minutes now, just going off on this. But hopefully you're drinking coffee as well. Um, but I think so. Just in my opinion, I think you give the MVP vote in the American League to Aaron Judge. And I think the Cy Young goes to Tarek Skubal, second year in a row. He's the best pitcher in the American League by far. And then I believe, let's see, I think, and then Rookie of the Year in the American League is obviously Nick Kurtz. That dude's going to hit 60 home runs in a season for sure. And so you go American League, you go Aaron Judge, MVP, Tarek Skubal, Cy Young, and you go Rookie of the Year, Nick Kurtz. And then you go to the National League, and it's also really plain and simple there in the National League. And now, finally, we'll read this tweet from Jeff Passan, speaking of the National League. You have Shohei Ohtani in 2025 at the plate, 282, 392, 623 with 55 home runs, 102 RBI, 146 runs, and 20 stolen bases. And on the mound, to add to that, he had 47 innings pitched, 62 strikeouts, 9 walks, 3 home runs allowed, and a 2.87 ERA and a 1.9 FIP. Jeff thinks he's the best to ever do it and the MVP again. He probably is the best to ever do it. I mean, those numbers are absolutely absurd. You don't really even see those numbers in the high school or the college level. Someone be able to hit with power, with speed, RBI, average, all these sorts of things, and then go on the mound and throw 102. And Ohtani is going to be a very serious weapon for the Dodgers. If they're going to make another run and win another World Series and go back to back, Shohei Ohtani obviously has to be a huge part of that on the mound and at the plate because he's the best player in the world, and best players in the world must produce in postseason. Speaking of Aaron Judge, then we speak of Aaron Judge, right? He's been very slow in the postseason, kind of like an Alex Rodriguez situation where A-Rod didn't really bust out in the postseason until 2009 when the Yankees won the World Series. And if the Yankees are going to get back to the World Series, then Aaron Judge has to be the leader of that team. They also need a Grisham and a Ben Rice. They also need their bullpen to be really hot and really fiery and really good. Obviously, starting pitching and pitching in general is going to get you to the World Series. But Aaron Judge has to produce in those big situations. He has to produce with runners in scoring position. He's not going to get walked that much. He only had 34 intentional walks in the season. Not even close to Barry Bonds' record, but still a lot of intentional walks. Cal Raleigh don't think had any. So you can see sort of how coaches and managers and pitchers fear Judge and fear Raleigh. So that's also a distinction to be made about MVP voting and things of that nature. And then what was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Good thing this is a casual hang and we're just live and we're just hanging out. And so I think that's important for Aaron Judge if they want to get back to the World Series. And then you think if the Dodgers have obviously the best lineup, not the best line, the best roster in Major League Baseball. They've paid for that roster, and They have been injured and not injured, and the only reason I really care about the Dodgers is because my buddy Blake Trinan plays for the Dodgers. We went to school together at South Dakota State University. We played ball together, and it's just really cool to see someone like that be an absolute dog on the mound. He really, really helped them last year. One of the best relievers in the game, if healthy. Hopefully, he is healthy and he can produce those types of numbers for the Dodgers in the 2025 postseason. But again, I think we have a very clear runner in the MVP voting with Shohei Ohtani. Kyle Schwarber had a great year. The guy from the Diamondbacks had a great year. Gerardo, I can't, Pedroma, I think his last name is. Those two guys had absolutely fantastic years. Kyle Schwarber has to carry the Phillies in the playoffs if they want to make another deep run. The Phillies have made a bunch of deep runs, but they have yet to really push through and win a World Series, obviously. And I'm one of those guys who really thinks that the best players in the world, your Bryce Harpers, your Mike Trouts, really need a World Series win. It doesn't make or break their career, right? You have Barry Bonds, the greatest baseball player that's ever lived, uh, at least hitting wise. Never won a World Series, but you just want to see the Mike Trouts and the Bryce Harpers, right, really win in the big time. We don't get to see Mike Trout in the postseason because he plays on such a dog shit team. Hopefully, I don't know how many more years he has left. He's hit over 400 home runs. It'd be really cool if he stayed healthy for a couple more years and he could get to 500. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's won a couple MVPs, one of the best players to ever do it, kind of like a Ken Griffey Jr. situation. But you'd love to see a Mike Trout postseason October run, just like I want to see Bryce Harper win a World Series. He's got a couple MVPs. That big contract, wins a World Series, really cements his career. But I think Kyle Schwarber is the catalyst for the Phillies, and he had an absolutely incredible year. Can he carry that into the postseason? Or, as we've seen in the last couple of years, the Phillies bats get really cold and they lose. And so we'll see. And so Ohtani, even though those two guys had great seasons, Ohtani is the MVP of 2025. That's a clear no dispute there. No dispute for the Cy Young in the National League. That's Paul Skeens. Two full seasons, not two full seasons, 1.5 seasons, but he had a full season in 2025. Clear Cy Young, like under 2 ERA, like the best pitcher in the game right now. Maybe him and Tarek Skubal. That's why they're going to win the Cy Young. Tarek Skubal's going back to back. Paul Skeens is going to win the Cy Young as many years in a row as he wants, as he keeps dominating this type of situation. And so it's really quite cool to see. And then I think the let's see, yeah, the rookie of the year will go with Cade Horton. Cade Horton. Um, yeah, not as crazy good year as Nick Kurtz, but still got it. So you have Judge and Tarek Skubal, and then you have Ohtani and Paul Skeens. Those are your awards. And then don't really care about manager of the year and things of that nature. That just like is what it is. And then let's look at now. Let's actually look now at the postseason preview. So we have some awards. Okay, so we know that the Blue Jays and the Mariners are the top 2 seeds in the American League. We know that, and we know that the Brewers and the Phillies are the top 2 teams in the National League, with really good teams in the wild card. You know, the bit of a sleeper team is always going to be the Reds because they haven't made it in a while and their team is young. But if Ellie De La Cruz can carry that squad, they have really good starting pitching, starting with Hunter Green. If the Dodgers are healthy and their back end bullpen is sharp and Ohtani is leading that team, they could win. Don't sleep on the Cubs. I'm not sure on the Padres. They just continue to lose and lose and lose and lose in big situations, kind of like the Mets. That's why the Mets aren't even in the playoffs this year. And that's why, you know, Pete Alonso doesn't even want to stay for his 2 more years. He wants to leave. He wants to get out of there. And whoever lands Pete Alonso, that's going to be a good deal. And then you see Juan Soto, who ended up having a great year. I'll give him that. He started really slow. Wasn't sure about his contract. I'm still not very sure about his contract, but he did have a fantastic year and will be top 4 in MVP voting. I think it'll go like Ohtani wins it. You know, then you have the Diamondbacks guy, Gerardo, then you have Schwarber, and then you maybe have Juan Soto. Maybe those are interchangeable, so maybe he makes top 3. If he makes top 3, he gets a signing or another bonus, so he can make $1 billion playing baseball with his $756 million contract, which is absurd, but whatever. And so here's your playoff picture. It starts tomorrow. Wild card starts tomorrow. Let's make some predictions before we go into some strengths and weaknesses about each team. Let's look at Tigers and Guardians. Tigers really fell off at the back end of the year. I mean, they had a huge lead. They were the best team in baseball for a while. They squeak into the playoffs as the 6th seed instead of probably being a 1 seed, which they would have been if you started the playoffs in like July, right? But I think they beat the Guardians. I think they beat the Guardians. I think the Tigers beat the Guardians. I think both wild cards on the American League side will go all 3 games, 1-1, all 3 games. I think the Tigers will beat them. The Tigers will move on to the second round to face the Mariners. And this is a beautiful wild card series. Like, really like now that we get like baseball's best rivalry for sure. Yankees and Red Sox, baseball's best rivalry, Yankees and Red Sox. We get that right off the bat in the wild card series for 3 games. Um, I think obviously you're going to have Garrett Crochet start game 1. If he wins that, the Boston is really in good shape. If he doesn't throw well, then obviously the Yankees take advantage of that. If Judge carries the load, or if guys like if they walk Judge a lot and Grisham and Ben Rice carry the load, then you're going to see the Yankees move on. But I really think the Yankees win and the Yankees face the Blue Jays. So that's going to be the second round. Second round matchups are going to be Tigers and Mariners, and Boston or Yankees versus excuse me, Yankees versus the Blue Jays. Let's see what's going on here. Just checking another site here quickly to see what's happening on Facebook. Doesn't look like that's happening at all. Did not go on Facebook. Okay. Whatever. It is what it is. I guess it didn't load up to Facebook, but not a problem. Okay, so that's going to be first round matchups. Then let's move over to the National League. National League, I mean, yeah, don't sleep on the Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, they made the playoffs. They're a playoff team, and they have really, really, really good starting pitching. Like 3 dudes who could definitely shut down the Dodgers, like Hunter Green at the start. But I just can't bet against the Dodgers in the playoffs. They're going to win. Dodgers are going to win. Dodgers are going to beat the Reds. It's going to go to 3 games. Um, and then I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Cubs are going to sweep the Padres. Simply because I just want to see Cubs Brewers. I think that's going to be a fucking sweet matchup. We have Brewers and Phillies are the 1 and 2 seed. Brewers were the best team in baseball for a very long time. Late in the season, they did get swept by the Rangers, who went on a little run, who ended up not making the playoffs. But I think you're going to see the Dodgers move on. You're going to see the Dodgers move on. You're going to see the Cubs move on, and you're going to get Dodgers Phillies and Brewers Cubs. Then we go to the second round. What's going to happen in the second round? You're going to see the Tigers versus the Mariners. I think the Tigers win that. I'm just not sold on the Mariners being able to win baseball games, especially baseball games that matter. I'm just not sold on that. And so I think the Tigers are going to move on to the American League Championship Series versus the Yankees. Again, I think the Mariners and the Blue Jays have the same issue. They just cannot win the big game. They can't. And maybe they can prove me wrong. Maybe the culture has changed. Maybe the mindset has changed. Maybe their sports psychologist or their mental performance coach has changed how they view pressure and how they play in certain situations. But the Yankees are built for these types of situations. Yes, the Yankees fell apart in the World Series last year. We saw that. They just shot themselves in the foot over and 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 over again. And they don't have Garrett Cole. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a different team. But the Mariners and the Blue Jays are not used to being in this spot. They are not. And the Tigers were here last year. They're a young team. They're fired up. They play with heart. They play with intensity. And if they get hot, as you saw in the regular season, they're pretty much unbeatable. The best team in baseball they can possibly be. So I think the Tigers beat the Mariners. They move on to the American League Championship Series. And I think the Yankees beat the Blue Jays and they move on to the American League Championship Series. And then I think the Yankees go back to the World Series. I'm saying this in part because of my bias is I do want Aaron Judge to win a World Series. Just like I loved seeing Alex Rodriguez win a World Series in 2009. I really want to see Aaron Judge win a World Series. I think that'd be fucking sweet. I still think Aaron Boone is on the chopping block, but I'd love to see Aaron Judge. A lot of Aarons right here going on. But I think the on the American League side, the Yankees make it back to the World Series, and My prediction is that the Yankees actually win the World Series this year because of the blunder they had last year. They're fired up. They're ready to go. They have to go through the wild card against the Red Sox, which is a fiery series. And then it's, a challenging series against the Blue Jays, right? Blue Jays are the number one seed. And then they win that division series. They beat the Tigers in the championship series, and they move on to win the World Series to get revenge for what happened last year when they fell apart. And then we see Aaron Judge as the MVP of the league and the MVP of the World Series, and has an absolutely unbelievable year and wins a World Series and becomes World Series champion and sort of etches his name in the history books. That's what I think is going to happen. But who are they going to face in the World Series? Well, I think the Phillies are finally going to beat the Dodgers. The Phillies are going to beat the Dodgers in the division series. So you're going to see the Phillies go to the National League Championship Series. You're going to see the Brewers make that victory. So you're going to see the Brewers versus the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. You're going to see the Brewers versus the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. And then you're going to see the Phillies go to the World Series. And you're going to see the Phillies versus the Yankees in the World Series, which is going to be cold as fuck. It's going to be very, 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 very cold. So all outdoor stadiums in late October. Again, the last game of the World Series, Game 7, could be on November 1st, and that could be a 30-degree game. And baseball is not meant to be played in cold weather. That's why I think they should condense the season. It'd be really nice if it ended in the middle of October. I know October baseball is amazing and has a flavor to it, and it's the best. But it's just baseball's just not meant to be played in the cold. And so, yes, it makes the games more interesting, but it's not like football where they play in the snow and it's like cool and they're always moving around. Baseball's a slow paced game. But anyways, that's a discussion for another time. And so we'll say that the Yankees and Phillies are going to play in the World Series. Yankees versus Phillies in the World Series. I would love for the Phillies to win too, because I want Bryce Harper to get a World Series. I want Kyle Schwarber to get a World Series win. But I think the Yankees will win. They'll beat the Phillies in the World Series. Aaron Judge will be the MVP of the World Series. He'll win the MVP of the season. He'll win the MVP of the World Series, and he'll be a World Series champion. And that's how the 2025 season is going to end. And so now let's just look at some strengths, some weaknesses about what might see. You have the bracket. I'm going to leave that up there. So we're going to talk about each team and see maybe where that goes. Look at the Blue Jays. They don't strike out a lot. They field very cleanly. And they scuffled as of late, which is bad. And so if they go to the World Series, if they actually win, I already gave my prediction. So I'm just saying what might happen, what could happen. If they actually do make it to the World Series, it's because George Springer carried that load. And if they go home early, simply it's because the offense didn't wake up and they just couldn't get the job done offensively. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer have to carry that offense, but they don't strike out a lot. They play really clean defense. So with that, that's always a recipe for success in baseball. So that's when you think about the Blue Jays, who have the number 1 seed. Mariners, number 2 seed. If they can win the World Series, they've had the best offense in baseball in September. They have a good rotation. And so if they keep that moving, then that will be important. If they win it all, I think it will be because of Julio Rodriguez, not because of Raleigh. Sure, Raleigh is the obvious choice, but teams are going to pitch around him in October and force other hitters to beat them, which means Julio Rodriguez has to show up when it matters most. He has to get on base. He has to score. He has to create havoc. He has to sort of do things on his own, because if the game is on the line, they're not going to pitch to Raleigh. If the game is on the line, they're not going to pitch to Raleigh. And so that just is what it is. And they're going to go home early because they're just not used to playing in October. That's why they're going to go home early. And that's what I predicted. And so that is what it is. And so let's move on to the next team, Guardians. No team has done better with less. But wow. No team could possibly make the playoffs after a 64-66 start, trading Shane Bieber at the deadline, and then boom, they made it. So crazy for them. They have this like momentum, they have this vibe, they have this culture in Cleveland that's really, really cool. And so they can win it all simply because they have Jose Ramirez. That dude's a Hall of Famer. That dude's most underrated player in the league, but also not underrated at the same time, because people who know baseball talk about Jose Ramirez like crazy. And because of him, they could do pretty much anything. And so if they win it all, it'll probably be because of the bullpen. And so there's no individual here, just be like the bullpen and Ramirez carry that load. But I think they're going to go home early. I think they're going to lose to the Tigers in the first round. So, yeah. Yankees, my pick to win the World Series. Why they can win the World Series? Well, they hit home runs, and that's not the only reason, right? But as they hit home runs, and Aaron Judge is bound to show up one of these Octobers again, just like A-Rod didn't show up and didn't show up and didn't show up and didn't show up. Boom, he shows up. They win the World Series. I think that's this year, right? He hit 331. He won the American League batting title, right? Highest average he's had. He's going to win the MVP. He's going to carry that into the season, and between Max Fried and Carlos Rendon, the Yankees have, that pair that could go, and their relief pitching is showing good signs, but they really, 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 really need to pick up their deficiencies defensively. And if they don't, just like they shot themselves in the foot in the World Series, they're going to lose. And so I think they're going to win it all. If the relievers don't perform, then they're done. If they're done, whatever. Then you have the Red Sox, who I think are again going to lose in the first round. They've the Red Sox have oscillated a lot between like being ready for a ring and like not being ready at all. So you have Garrett Crochet, right? Underappreciated bullpen, right? They're a pretty good team. If Alex Bregman can get going, right, then maybe, right? They're not going to win the World Series. They're not going to make it out of the first round, so it doesn't matter. I'm not really sure how they made it in at all, but whatever. I'd rather have seen the Rangers in there, but it is what it is. They're going to go home early. They're going to be beat by the Yankees in the first round, and then you got the Tigers. This was the best team in baseball and American League for a long time. They have an historic collapse, but historic collapses usually mean they have some momentum to build. And winning games in the baseball postseason, in the playoffs, is about momentum. Whoever has momentum. That's why I think the Brewers, yes, might win in their first round matchup because they have they have a break. And sometimes a break is good, sometimes a break is bad. I think it's good for a team like the Brewers because it's not like they've been playing great. So they don't want to carry that momentum and they want to reset, restart, get back to their old ways, and then they're going to win. They're going to beat the Cubs, I think. But the Tigers, historic collapse. Now they're back on the grind, right? They got Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter and Spencer Torkelson and people like that who can carry the load. Scooble will be the easy answer. That's an interesting thing. It says that Steven Strasburg is the only pitcher to win World Series MVP honors in the past 10 years. Only he, Madison Bumgarner, and Cole Hamels have won the award in the past season, 20 seasons. So maybe if he pitches twice, like every series, but in the opening round, he's only going to pitch once. He could pitch a couple times in the second, depending on how long the series goes. But he might be, of course, he has to pitch really well. He has to basically win every game that he starts. But I think Riley Green is that catalyst. And I have them going into the American League Championship Series against the Yankees. So we'll see. And then we go to the National League, number one series, Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah, they have been the best team in baseball over the last 6 months, but I'm not really sold on them. They got swept by the Rangers late in the season, but of course they have a chance to make it because they're a good team. Um, and so I think if they keep playing the same way they've been playing, then then they have a chance. I think they're going to lose to the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. They're going to beat the Cubs in the second round because Cubs are going to beat the Padres. And then I think they're going to lose to the Phillies in the National League Championship Series. And then also it depends on the hype surrounding Jacob Mizorowski. Is he going to be the guy they think? Or is he going to just be the young rookie that can't get it done when the lights are on the brightest? So we'll see. And then the Phillies, the team I think that's going to make it to the World Series. Kyle Schwarber's made for October, right? Along with Bryce Harper, Christopher Sanchez, Juan Duran, right? The rest of the whole. Trey Turner wins the National League batting title. He's ready to freaking go. And so we'll see. I think they can win it all. If Schwarber and Harper, who've both been outstanding in the playoffs, right, then they continue that, like, and the rest of the lineup doesn't go quiet, and Trey Turner finds his rhythm and hits the way he can, then they're ready for October. And of course, their starting pitching has to be there, but they got to have a good bullpen, just like any team. But I think they're going to make it to the World Series this year and lose to the Yankees. And then you have the Dodgers. Of course, they can win the World Series. They did it last year, and pretty much everyone who contributed on that team is back, right? They have the best postseason performer in the world in Kiki Hernandez. Kiki Hernandez. So that's hilarious. But yeah, like, of course they can make it. They got Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Kershaw is not on the National League or is not on the wild card roster, but Kershaw will be a obviously a threat, right? You have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, right? They have the best roster in baseball, Los Angeles Dodgers. I think they're going to lose though to the Phillies in the second round in the divisional series, and so I want to see the Phillies make it to the World Series against the Yankees. I think that would be an awesome World Series. And then you have the Cubs. You have the Cubs. They're the number 4 seed. They're absolutely fantastically defensive team. They got Kyle Tucker back to charge on offense, and he's great. And so things of that nature, right? I think Pete Armstrong had a 30 for 30 year. That's incredible. 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. So they've got catalyst there. I think just anything in the postseason comes down to which players are going to step up that you don't think are going to step up, and how good can your pitching be in the clutch moments? Because guys are going to get on base. You're going to have a random guy throw. How's he going to get out of the jam with runners in first and second, nobody out, or bases loaded, 1 out, or who's going to hit the clutch home run or get the clutch hit or do this or do that? It's going to be random guys, right? Because especially if you face teams who have powerhouse hitters like Schwarber and Harper and things like that, they're going to get pitched around sometimes. So who are the guys that are going to step up in that place? And so the Cubs are just a magnificent team defensively. Cubs always have a great vibe. They have great culture, and so they could win. I think they're going to beat the Padres in the first round, and they're going to lose to the Brewers in the second round. And then you go to the 5th seed, the Padres. I just don't think they're good. Yes, they're built to succeed in the modern playoff baseball, but they just never get it done. Tatis Jr., Machado, Jackson Merrill, right? They just continue to lose and lose and lose and lose when it matters most, like the Mariners, like the Blue Jays, right? And it's like a part of the culture of the team. Like, why are we so good? We have so many good players and we can't get it done. Because you don't believe. You don't believe you can. And I think teams like the Phillies and the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Tigers do believe that. And I think the Padres get booted out in the first round again. And then you have the 6th seed is the Reds. They're going to lose in the first round of the Dodgers, but it's really cool that they've made it to October. If they win the World Series, it's only because they're starting pitching. Right? Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, like these first two games of a 3-game series could really realistically beat the Dodgers if the Dodgers bats are slow in the first 2 games of the series. But I just don't see that happening. Because the Reds are just a young team. If Ellie De La Cruz, who regressed this year as a baseball player, doesn't step up and have an amazing year and amazing series and be the catalyst for his team, they're not going to win. And so I just don't see them getting past the first round. And so that's why I do think that the Phillies and the Yankees will make the World Series, and the Yankees will win the World Series. And I think the last thing we maybe want to look at here is potentially some under the radar people that could be the catalyst for their teams this postseason. Because again, if you're going to win postseason games, you have to have guys you don't expect come in together in the clutch and get the job done. So I think for the Cubs, you could have Nico Horner, could be a breakout star. Like you saw Edman last year, who went on to win the NLCS MVP. Horner could be the same way, because you need random guys. They're all Major League Baseball players and all really, 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 really fucking good. But sometimes they don't shine when it's brightest. Sometimes they do. And these guys could be the catalyst for their team, like an Edman was last year for the Dodgers, and they just go nuts and they help them win. Trent Grisham of the Yankees, that's another guy. Like if he goes off, Ben Rice potentially is too, right? Grisham had 34 home runs this year, a career high of 17 in 2022. The Yankees have pop, and if Grisham continues that pop in the postseason, especially if they pitch around Judge, then the Yankees again are going to go very, very, very far. Again, I have them winning the World Series. I think Harrison Bader. I played with Harrison Bader when I was in college. We played on a summer team together. This dude is the fucking man. High energy, like just great defensively. He's an absolute gift to any team he plays on, and if he plays well, then he could really carry the Phillies. He could be that surprising guy like an Edman was last year. And then Andy Pegas, right, of the Dodgers, could be that way for the Dodgers, just like, again, Edman was. And Dalton Varsho of the Blue Jays could be that guy for them. And Saul Frelick of the Brewers could be that guy for the Brewers. Because, again, you need sort of a random guy that's under the radar to just have a nuclear year like you saw David Freese do in 2010, 2011 with the Cardinals. They're not going to win that World Series if David Freese doesn't go absolutely ape shit, right? And so you need a guy like that again, like an Edmund was last year. And so those six guys could potentially do that to be the catalyst for their team. I think if Trent Grisham does it and if Harrison Bader does it, then my picks are going to be right, and we're going to see the Yankees and the Phillies meet in the World Series. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else?